Hello students, and as in the last class we have read about the human digestive system, which is a part of nutrition. So we read about human digestive system. Human digestive system, as I said you people, that is the process of breakdown of complex food particle into simpler ones for getting energy. So I said you in the last class that the organs which were organs which were associated with digestive systems. Organs which are associated with digestive system, we are having many organs in our body as eye, ear, nose, tongue, but all of the organs are not associated with digestion in our body. Hence, there are few organs only which are associated with digestive system. So number one is the mouth. Mouth is also known as buccal cavity. Mouth is also known as buccal cavity. The next one is pharynx. Epiglottis. Next one after epiglottis, esophagus. O is silent here, hence it is known as esophagus. After the esophagus is stomach. After stomach, small intestine. Seventh one is large intestine. Then rectum. And ninth one was the anus. These are the organs which are associated with our digestive system. So the next part was glands. As I said you in this section that stomach is having 4 parts. If you watch your last video, you will be able to see the 4 parts which I have discussed. The parts of the small intestine also which I have discussed, and the part of the large intestine also which I have discussed. It is already discussed in your last video. Please watch it and make the notes properly. So these are the organs. Now I will just recall the glands which are associated with our digestive system. Glands associated with digestive system. Number one was salivary gland. Salivary gland. It is of 3 types: parotid, parotid gland, sublingual, lingual, and submaxillary or mandibular. Submaxillary or submandibular. The next one was liver, which secretes bile juice. And the last one was pancreas, which secretes pancreatic juice, which was trypsin. Pancreatic juice. I have given you the dental formula in the last video, so we will start about the human digestive system today directly. Just write down one definition. Peristaltic movement. Peristaltic movement. Peristaltic movement, just understand it. Listen it carefully, then you will be able to understand properly. Peristaltic movement is the process of passage of food in your gut. Suppose when you were eating anything, you are taking a piece of chapati in your mouth, and you were first crunching it, chewing it, breaking it into smaller and smaller particles and making it semi-solid by the mixing of the saliva, which is secreted from your salivary gland. So when the food is mixed with the saliva, it becomes semi-solid. And when it becomes semi-solid, then what happens? So as we have openings in our nasal part, now the nose part, which helps in entering the air, through which air enters in our nose, and by the help of the trachea, which is also known as windpipe. Trachea, which is also known as windpipe, helps in the flow of air from outside to our lungs. It carries the air to our lungs. But just below of the trachea, there is another pipe, that is esophagus, which is esophagus. Esophagus is known as food pipe. Esophagus is known as food pipe, which carries the food in our stomach region. So, as I said you people, that trachea is in front, windpipe is in front, and just behind the windpipe is our food pipe. Windpipe opens into the lungs region, which is known as the thoracic region, and this esophagus, the food pipe, which is just behind the trachea, opens into the stomach region. So, whenever we eat anything and when we swallow it by a movement which is known as peristaltic movement, the food passes from one part to the another. So, let me explain. Suppose this is our esophagus. When we are eating anything, suppose this is the piece of the food which after becoming semi-solid has to pass from one part to the another in our alimentary canal. Then when the food has to be passed from one part to the another, then here expandation and contraction takes place. And when this food from this part will come to this part, then this again the old part will regain its original shape, and the next part where the food will go, there expandation will take place, and the previous region will regain its original shape. That means expandation and contraction of the esophagus for the passage of food to the stomach is called peristaltic movement. So let me write. The process of expandation and contraction of the walls of gut or alimentary canal for the passage of food. The process of expandation and contraction of the walls of alimentary canal or gut for the passage of food is called peristaltic movement. So it might be clear. So we'll start now. Practice the diagram properly. So this is our mouth part. This is our esophagus. Here is the gullet. Here is the epiglottis. This is the stomach. This is the here is the liver. Here is the gallbladder. This is a leaf-like structure, that is the pancreas. Duodenum. Liver. Liver has two parts, right liver and left liver. Gallbladder. This one is the large intestine. Small intestine. Rectum. Anus. And this is another organ which is known as vestigial organ in our body, having no function, but when a part of food particles enter in this function, this part which is known as appendix causes trouble in our body. So appendix has no role in digestive system, but it is a part of our digestive system as it is located at the lower part, at the base of the large intestine, and if any food particles enters in it, the size of the appendix, the vermiform appendix, increases and it creates trouble. So doctor by surgical method means by the method of operation just removes this part from our body so that we don't suffer from any type of abdominal pain. Okay, so this mouth part we will deal here now. You people listen me very carefully whatever I am going to explain you now. Mouth. As we people know that in our mouth there is a wall or a barrier which separates our buccal part and nasal part, that is our palate. Palate is the part which is like a wall for the separation of nasal chamber and this mouth part. Whenever we eat anything, the food has to be broken down into smaller and smaller particles so that we can swallow it. So how does this food breaks? This food breaks by our teeth. Our teeth helps it in chewing, grinding, cutting. And this process is known as mastification. Mastification is the process in which the food is crushed and converted into smaller pieces. When the food is converted into smaller pieces, then by the help of this our tongue helps in mixing of saliva with the food particles. When in the food, saliva, that is the watery substance which is secreted from our salivary gland, which has an enzyme known as salivary amylase. When this food particle mixes with the saliva, it becomes semi-solid. The food particle when mixing with the saliva in our mouth is known as bolus. The food when crushed, chewed, broken into small pieces and mixing of saliva takes place, it is called bolus. Now this bolus enters into esophagus. Where it will go? Esophagus by the help of the peristaltic movement. But here a question arises. This is our mouth, this is our mouth part. Here, this is our pharynx part. Here is a common pharynx is a common passage. Pharynx is a common passage for both air and food. So whenever we eat anything, it directly goes in our stomach. Why not in our trachea? Whenever we eat anything, then we have a flip-like cover. We have a cover-like structure which covers the trachea. which covers the trachea, and the food, instead of going in this esophagus, it will go in our food pipe. So this cover, which helps in the prevention of entering the food into our trachea, is known as epiglottis. Is known as epiglottis. Now, when the food through our esophagus, through the esophagus goes and is stored in the stomach. In the stomach, it is stored for approx 3 to 4 hours. So, what happens now? In the stomach, the food is stored for 3 to 4 hours. The food is stored for 3 to 4 hours. In the stomach, we have a mucous membrane lining. We have mucous membrane lining. This is the mucous membrane lining. This one is the mucous membrane lining. And we have dilute HCl. A dilute HCl means dilute HCl. HCl is an acid which is known as hydrochloric acid. Now acid is of two types, dilute and concentrated. Diluted acid means 30% acid plus 30% acid and 70% water is present. That means the amount of water is more in this instead of acid. This is less powerful in comparison to the concentrated one, and concentrated one is 100% acid. 100% acid. It is strong. It is very much powerful. So in our stomach we have dilute HCl. This HCl is acidic in nature because it is already an acid. And in our stomach we have a mucous membrane lining. And this mucous membrane prevents the inner walls of the stomach. This mucous membrane prevents the inner wall of the stomach. So that this HCl don't have any effect on the walls of stomach. Otherwise, the walls of the stomach will get damaged due to the action of acid. So here the food is stored for 3 to 4 hours, and for the breakdown of protein will take place. Protein will be broken down here, and when the proteins are broken down, then what happens? When the proteins are broken down in the stomach, it has to be absorbed. How the process of absorption will start here. Food particles is stored in the stomach. No carbohydrate digestion takes place in the stomach. Only proteins, fats digestion takes place. So now the food from stomach has to pass into the small intestine. The food from stomach has to pass to the small intestine. In small intestine, we have small finger-like projection that is called villi, and this part is called crypts of liver खून, crypts of liver खून. These are the fine, small, finger-like projection of a part of the small intestine which helps in absorption. The digested food particle has to be absorbed. In this part, in this microvilli, there is the inner wall. These inner walls are lined by blood vessels, and lymph vessels. These inner walls are lined by blood vessels and lymph vessels. Here, the digested food particles will pass through these blood vessels and these lymph vessels. So, this small intestine has this lining of blood vessels and lymph vessels. Small intestine is the site for further digestion of carbohydrates, proteins and fats. Small intestine is the site for the further breakdown or digestion of carbohydrate. Breakdown or digestion of what? Breakdown or digestion. What does it digest? Digestion of carbohydrate, fats, and proteins. It helps in the digestion of carbohydrate, fats and proteins. And the internal environment of small intestine is always alkaline in nature. Alkaline, that is means basic in nature. As in stomach we have seen that it was acidic in nature, but in small intestine it is basic in nature. So as I said you, that digestion or breakdown of carbohydrate, fats and protein takes place in small intestine. So fats are digested by converting them into small globules like structure. Fats are converted into small globules like structure by the help of an enzyme which is known as bile juice secreted from the liver. The process of breakdown of fat into small globules like structure by the action of the bile juice secreted from liver is called emulsification. Emulsification is a very much important term. It will come in the exam. So please read it and write it. Emulsification. These are the processes which takes place in small intestine. Small intestine is site of absorption. In small intestine, due to the presence of the microvilli, the surface area increases, and the surface area is increasing, and so it will absorb more and more of the digested food particles in the form of protein, carbohydrates, fats, lipids, etc. And when these fats and lipids are again broken down, these carbohydrates are broken down so that we can get energy. So emulsification, it is the process of breakdown of fats into small globules like structure, small globules like structure by the action of bile juice secreted from liver, hence known as emulsification. Hence it is called emulsification. So after the process of emulsification, now as liver has secreted its bile juice, now pancreas will also secrete an enzyme known as trypsin. Trypsin or pancreatic juice is secreted from pancreas. What this trypsin or pancreatic juice will do, it is also an enzyme which helps in the breakdown of proteins and lipase for fats. It helps in the digestion of protein and lipase. For fats. Okay, here these protein and lipase are again digested for fats. Now this small intestine, what again it will do? It will break down the digested proteins again into more smaller forms. The digested protein will break down into again smaller and smaller forms, and hence the smallest protein will be absorbed by the villi, which is a finger-like projections present in the small intestine. Here the digested food particles has already been absorbed, and the process is known as absorption. Absorption. We got a new term here. As we have read that when the food particles comes in the mouth, it mixes with the saliva, and we just engulf it, we swallow it through the esophagus. None of the action takes place in the esophagus. From the esophagus, the food particles enters in our stomach, where the food is stored for 3 to 4 hours. Where the food mixes with HCl, dilute HCl. After mixing with the dilute HCl, the food becomes chyme. The food in the stomach is called chyme. In the mouth, it was bolus. Now the chyme from there enters into the small intestine. In the small intestine, breakdown of fats took place, and when this breakdown of the fats took place, the process was known as emulsification, and again the protein was broken down into small and smaller pieces. The proteins and the digested food particles, by the help of the finger-like projection, that is the villi, is absorbed, and is transferred by the help of the lymph vessels and blood vessels which are present in the villi to the different parts of the body. So absorption is a process to absorb digested food particles and transport it to the different parts of the body. By the help of blood vessels and lymph vessels. So it is the process of transportation of digested food particles to the different parts of the body by the help of the blood vessels and lymph vessels. Now, again we got another word, defecation. Now the digested food, when is transferred to the different parts of the body, it is absorbed, and the undigested one has to be expelled out, has to be thrown out from our body. Then the defecation is the process of expellation of undigested food particles from our large intestine. Now the undigested food particle has to be thrown out, and this through the help of the anus. By anus. So undigested food particle has to be thrown out from the body when in the form of feces. This feces contains large amount of carbohydrate proteins. Now we got so many words over here. This digestive system is a very complex system. Each and every or many of the organs are involved in this type of processes. As I said, starting from very beginning, mouth part, then esophagus. After esophagus was stomach. After stomach it was small intestine. Then after small intestine was large intestine. After large intestine was rectum. Then was anus. This is a flow chart. Of digestive system. In these two glands were involved. One was the liver, another was pancreas. So in each part we have a sphincter which is a muscular valve-like structure, which is a muscular ring-like structure, muscular ring-like structure which prevents the entry of food particles to different parts of the alimentary canal. To different parts of the alimentary canal. Suppose this is our esophagus, this is our stomach, then here we have a sphincter, so that when food enters into the esophagus, it will stop here, and when this sphincter will open, will expand, then the food particle will enter in our stomach. Now from stomach, in stomach also we have a sphincter, that when this sphincter will open, then this food particle will enter into our small intestine. So this sphincter is a guard also, which helps in the prevention of food from one part to the another in our alimentary canal. Okay, till today this much only. Thank you.